It's 2:14 in the morning. A cyberattack shuts down 3 critical substations outside Philadelphia. Within 11 minutes, power drops across the mid-Atlantic. Hospitals switch to backup diesel. Water pumps go silent. Traffic lights blink out. Cell towers drain their batteries. And inside a reinforced concrete bunker buried 40 feet below a rural hillside in Maryland, a team of engineers you've never heard of begins executing a protocol most Americans don't know exists. This isn't a drill. This is the hidden backbone of America's energy survival system. A vast, classified network of blackout bunkers, hardened command centers, emergency generation sites, and fuel depots built to keep the country functioning when the main grid collapses. It's not designed to keep your lights on. It's designed to keep the nation from falling apart. And it cost more than $600 billion.
I'm standing at the entrance to one of these sites right now. This unassuming shed hides a massive bunker beneath. From the road, it looks like a maintenance shed. It's much more than that. Behind me, a 12-ton blast door opens into the bunker. The air smells like concrete and machine oil. This is where the real grid begins.
Most people think the power grid is what they see. Transmission towers, substations, power plants. But that's the surface. The real system, the one built to survive catastrophic failure, is hidden. It exists in layers most utility maps don't show. Buried corridors beneath decommissioned military sites, hardened vaults under federal buildings, standalone generation facilities disguised as warehouses. Emergency fuel reserves stockpiled in unmarked tanks across 12 states. This infrastructure wasn't built for convenience. It was built for continuity. Because the people who run this country understand something the public doesn't. If the grid goes down for more than 72 hours, civilization doesn't pause. It unravels. The scenario is simple: a geomagnetic storm, a coordinated physical attack on key transformers, a cyber weapon that corrupts grid management software. Any of these events could trigger a cascading blackout lasting weeks or months. Water treatment stops. Fuel pipelines freeze. Grocery supply chains collapse. Banks can't process transactions. Hospitals run out of generator fuel. Within 5 days, major cities become unmanageable. So the federal government, in partnership with the Department of Energy, FEMA, and the Defense Department, built a parallel system. A ghost grid. One that doesn't rely on the public network. One that can be activated section by section to restore power to critical infrastructure, even when everything else is dark.
I'm inside the primary operations center now. This is where critical decisions are being made around the clock to maintain stability. It's a long rectangular room, low ceiling, no windows. 30 workstations face a wall of screens with real-time grid load data. The data here covers the entire eastern seaboard in real time. These people don't work for your local utility. They work for something else, something that doesn't advertise.
The backbone of this system is power independence. Each bunker facility is equipped with its own generation capacity, and diesel engines capable of running for 14 days without refueling. Natural gas turbines with direct pipeline feeds. Battery arrays the size of shipping containers designed to bridge the gap between grid failure and generator startup. Some sites even have small modular reactors, compact nuclear units that produce between 5 and 10 megawatts, enough to power the facility and a few nearby substations indefinitely. But generation is only part of it. These bunkers are hardened against the electromagnetic pulse, physical assault, and environmental contamination. Walls are lined with copper mesh and rebar grids to disperse EMP energy. Air filtration systems can operate in lockdown for months. Communications are routed through military satellite uplinks and buried fiber that bypasses commercial telecom infrastructure entirely. If the surface world goes offline, these facilities stay connected. The fuel logistics alone are staggering. The system maintains over 900 million gallons of diesel and jet fuel in hardened underground tanks, rotated every 18 months to prevent degradation. Refueling convoys are pre-contracted with private logistics firms under classified contingency agreements. Delivery routes are planned years in advance. Some tanks are located on federal land. Others are hidden beneath industrial parks, airport maintenance zones, and decommissioned rail yards.
I'm walking through one of the fuel storage chambers now. The ceiling is reinforced concrete, maybe 3 feet thick. The tanks are modular. Each one holds about 50,000 gallons. There are 16 of them in this room alone. You can hear the circulation pumps. It feels like standing inside a submarine.
The engineers who designed this system didn't think in terms of comfort. They thought in terms of triage. When the grid fails, power doesn't come back everywhere at once. It comes back in phases, determined by a priority matrix that most elected officials have never seen. Hospitals, water treatment, military bases, federal communications hubs, certain transportation corridors, and select financial data centers. Everything else stays dark until Phase 2 or Phase 3. Or longer. There are 86 primary bunker sites across the continental United States. Each one is responsible for a geographic zone. Each zone has pre-identified critical loads, hardened substations that can be re-energized from the bunker's independent generation, and transmission pathways that have been reinforced, buried, or rerouted to survive the same events that took down the main grid. The construction of these facilities took more than a decade. Excavation crews working under non-disclosure agreements. Concrete poured in the middle of the night. Equipment delivered in unmarked trucks. Either some of the tunnels were dug using tunnel boring machines, originally built for metro projects that were quietly repurposed. Other sections were carved into existing Cold War-era bunkers and retrofitted with modern grid control systems. The cost is almost incomprehensible. $600 billion spread across federal emergency appropriations, Department of Defense black budget line items, and utility surcharges buried in rate structures that customers never question. It's the largest classified infrastructure program in American history, and almost no one knows it exists.
I'm standing inside the command center, looking at the primary reactor core. This is where it all happens. The machine in front of me is about the size of a shipping container. Matte gray, no branding. It's a mobile gas turbine unit, 25 megawatts. Built for black start operation. That means it doesn't need the grid to turn on. It can bootstrap itself and start feeding power into isolated sections of the network. And there are 6 more units just like it in this hall.
The operational doctrine is called island mode restoration. When the main grid collapses, these bunkers don't try to restart the entire system at once. That's impossible. Instead, they create islands, small isolated grids, each powered independently, and each serving a predefined set of loads. Over time, if conditions allow, the islands link together. Frequency is synchronized, load is balanced, and piece by piece, the grid begins to rebuild itself from the bottom up. But here's the part that doesn't get talked about. This system isn't designed to save everyone. It's designed to save the functions of government, the continuity of military command, the stability of financial markets, and the operation of logistics networks that prevent total collapse. Your house might stay dark for a month, but the port that brings in food will have power. The fuel depot that supplies emergency vehicles will stay online. The data center that processes Social Security payments will keep running. It's not about fairness, it's about preventing chaos. The people who staff these bunkers are trained for scenarios most of us can't imagine. They run drills twice a year, full blackout simulations, communications with the surface severed, generator startup sequences tested under load, fuel consumption monitored, staff rotations planned for extended isolation. If some of these exercises last 72 hours, others last a week. The goal is always the same: prove the system can function autonomously when everything else has failed. And the threat is real.
I'm looking at a hardened communications terminal right now. It's connected to a satellite uplink that doesn't use any commercial provider. The screen is showing encrypted status feeds from bunker sites across the country. This is how they coordinate when nothing else works. It's the invisible nerve system of a country in crisis.
In 2013, someone walked up to a substation in California and shot out 17 transformers with a rifle. The facility was offline for weeks. In 2021, a ransomware attack on a fuel pipeline caused panic buying and shortages across the Southeast. These weren't hypothetical risks. They were warning shots. The Department of Energy estimates that a successful coordinated attack on just 9 critical substations could black out most of the continental United States for months. Transformers that size take more than a year to manufacture. They're built overseas. Shipping them requires specialized transport. Replacing them during a crisis, with supply chains disrupted and infrastructure damaged, could take years. That's why this system exists, not to prevent the attack, but to survive it. The question isn't whether America can afford to build this network. The question is whether it can finish it in time. Because right now, the system is only 70% complete. Some zones are fully operational, others are still under construction. Fuel reserves are below target in 3 regions. Staffing is incomplete at 24 sites. And every year, the threats get more sophisticated.
I'm standing in front of a map of the eastern United States, where the situation is quickly escalating. Red zones mark areas with full bunker coverage. Yellow zones are partial. Gray zones have nothing. There's more gray than I expected. The system reveals a critical weakness. Look here, that's the gap. These areas are completely exposed. That's what keeps people here awake at night.
This isn't the kind of infrastructure you see on the news. It doesn't get ribbon cuttings. It doesn't get celebrated. It gets buried, locked down, and classified. Because the moment the public knows exactly where these sites are, exactly how they work, and exactly who gets power when the lights go out, the system becomes vulnerable. Not just to attack, but to expectation. The hidden grid isn't a backup plan, it's a lifeboat, and there aren't enough seats for everyone. So the next time the power flickers, the next time you hear about a substation fire or a cyber attack on energy infrastructure, remember this: beneath your feet, in places you'll never see, there are people preparing for the day when the grid doesn't come back on. They're not preparing to restore normal life. They're preparing to preserve what's left. Because in the end, the blackout bunkers aren't about keeping America comfortable. They're about keeping America alive.
I'm standing in one of the unfinished sections now, and you can feel the difference immediately. Behind me, the tunnel just ends in raw concrete and exposed rebar. The lighting here is still temporary. Ventilation is weaker here. Some cable trays are installed, but others are still empty. This is what 70% complete actually looks like. A race against time underground. They still need more fuel capacity, more relay points, more trained staff. Until then, entire regions stay exposed.